You're watching a TGM production. Hello and welcome back to Tom Mason, The Interviews. Yes, we're back with another one. This time, got a fancy new microphone, and it's the last interview of 2025. It's because 2025's over in a few days, I assume. I'm not the one looking at the calendar, you probably are, so you probably know more than me. Well, it is the 23rd of December. Let's leave it at that. So, we shall crack on. Today, my guest is best known for appearing in the 70s Famous Five. So you can count down how many of the Famous Five cast I'll get to interview. It's the one and only Marcus Harris.
Hooray! Have a go, have a go.
Yeah. So we shall start at the very beginning because Julie Andrews once said it was a good place to start, and I've not disagreed with her once yet. How did you get into the industry we call acting?
Well, when I got into it, it wasn't an industry, it was a hobby. But first of all, did you see my hello in a different language? Have a
Yeah,
go, have a go.
yeah.
I can quickly share with you that that is Abagav, which is a stage school language that Jennifer and Michelle taught Gary and I whilst we when we first met them on the Famous Five. So there you go. Have a go, have a go. Hello in Abagav.
Wow.
Right, so back to your question. I was about four when my mum and dad said, right, up on a stage, do some little part or something. And I got up there and I found that people were laughing, smiling, and then ultimately clapping. And I thought, this is a good laugh. I'm enjoying this. So I sort of carried on from there, doing more and more professional type productions until eventually my Henley drama agent sort of introduced me to a lady called Flavia Pickworth. And Flavia Pickworth was one of the preeminent agencies for children at the time. So at the age of 12, I met her, went to a lot of auditions and didn't get anything. Then ultimately went to an audition for the Famous Five. And as I think Gary mentioned to you when he was on, there were about 5,000 of us, and it took ages to work our way through to get down to the final 100. And then it was really nerve-wracking because we knew we were in with a chance. And that was it. My professional career had begun, and I've looked back ever since.
And before you were cast in the Famous Five, were you um a fan? That's the one I'm gonna use. Were you a fan of the original books, or were you going to this fresh and you had no idea what to expect?
A super fan. I'd read every single one of the books, and I think Gary said to you when he was on that the character of Dick chimed with him. Well, the character of Julian chimed with me whenever I read those books,
Yeah.
and I imagined finding the stuff at Finiston Farm or um, sailing away to Kieran Island. I always imagined I was Julian. I always imagined I was the captain of the boat, even though it was Georgina's boat. So yes, yeah, always loved the Famous Five, and a very big part of my life before I even got in it.
Yeah. And what was your experience, your personal experience like on Famous Five?
Absolutely fantastic. We spent 2 years, best part of 2 years, living away from home, living with other adults, being treated as adults,
Mm.
which was a hugely formative for
Yeah.
me at 13 and 14 years old, with people who I consider my brothers and sisters to this day. Jennifer and Gary, uh, still very much my brother and my sister, albeit as cinematic ones, but we meet every year, at least once a year.
Yeah.
We always have a meal together and see. So I meet both of them
Mm.
once a year, and I meet them individually at different times in the year, and they meet each other and
Yeah.
things. So we're still very much a family. Um, yeah, it was a fantastic experience.
And do you think that being treated as an adult sort of enhance the experience to sort of make it feel like less like you were there just being a child, but you were there doing a professional job.
That's definitely how it felt. It would be hard to say that anything could have enhanced the basic experience anyway. At the age of 13, to be plucked from a school that you didn't enjoy very much, to be treated as an adult, to be paid money to portray the character that you love. Um, it was just wonderful right from the very first audition. I don't know how I would have felt if my auditions hadn't gone anywhere, but right from the first audition, working my way through the process, right through the first year filming, second year filming, it was such great fun, which I hope comes across on screen as well. And we were living those adventures as we were filming them.
Yeah.
We were living those adventures and creating our own because we were there with a film crew. And that's an adventure all in its own way.
Yeah, and do you think that because this is regarded as the greatest adaptation in English language terms of the Famous Five, do you think that when you first got the role, do you think the pressure was added on to you because you were trying to portray what the character was for the first time in a visual medium?
Um, no, I don't know. I don't remember ever feeling pressure. I think I always felt huge excitement.
Yeah,
Um, and I suppose there was nothing else to go on before I stood up and portrayed Julian. Nobody had an idea of what Julian should look like except for the books.
yeah,
So when I stepped onto the set, I was Julian, and the lines were brilliantly written by Richard Sparks and Gail Renard
yeah,
and other writers, and they brought it alive on the page. So often, when you see poor acting, it's actually not poor acting, it's
yeah,
poor writing. But because we had great writers and enthusiastic actors and
yeah,
I, I'm not classing myself as a good actor, maybe I am, but the others were. But even if you put poor actors with great writing, it still works. But we had great actors and good writing,
yeah,
and that just made for fun. And the end product, yes, it has stood the test of time. It is, what is it now? Nearly 50 years ago, coming up to 50 years ago. Or is it over that now? No, coming up to
yeah,
50 years ago that we filmed it, but it's still fresh. And I get messages from people all over the world that are watching it for the first time. Their kids, their grandchildren are watching it for the first time. And people know the Famous Five and they know our version of the Famous
yeah.
Five. So no, I was really lucky, Tom. It was a fantastic 2 years of my life, and it set me up with the maturity that most 15-year-olds didn't have as they were sort of facing what to do after school and where to go and things. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was brilliant.
And a few actors, mainly those American documentaries where they mention these type of things, they have them saying that they don't feel like they could connect with other children on their level because they've had a different childhood experience. Do you think that because there was a few in and around that time, there's and a bit after, because there's a few different adaptations of different books with children's stars that are deemed in the same level of praise. Do you think that sort of made it more easier to sort of like you had other people to relate to. So if you said, "Oh, this happened to me as a child," other people that were in a similar position could relate. Do you think that that sort of makes your experience feel more seen because you know that other people of a similar task or in a similar time frame have experienced similar things to you?
I think that it's quite a rarefied world, the world of successful child actors.
Mm,
Um, and apart from Zamo from Grange Hill, I don't know that I've ever met any other child
yeah,
actors. I've met plenty of adult actors, but I don't know that I've ever sat and compared myself to any other child actor. I think if I'm honest, Tom, I came out and I'm still an actor to this
yeah,
day, and I still do various projects and various work. Nothing quite the size of Famous Five yet, but I'm still waiting. My agent will happily accept calls from any of the soaps or any major Hollywood
yeah,
blockbuster. I'm here for you. Um, But that hasn't happened. So I came out of the famous five and went back to being a schoolboy. And admittedly, it's a schoolboy that everybody in the school knew,
Yeah.
um, and a schoolboy who would go off to a different village or a different town, and people would point. And invariably, Gary will have told you this as well. You hear the song, "We are the famous five," and it's sung at you used to be sung at me everywhere I
Yeah.
go. Now it doesn't happen quite so often, but I love it when it does.
Yeah.
Although I must tell you one story, Tom. I went to Ireland with some friends to watch England-Ireland rugby,
Yeah.
and we were stood in a bar in one of the main town centre bars in Dublin, thinking nothing of it. And all of a sudden I heard these two, must have been in their sort of mid-20s, girls, all dressed up for a night out. They started singing the theme tune, and then they came up and said, "We're right, aren't we? You were Julian in the famous five." And my friends who were there were like, "Wow, he's been spotted." So you know what? I'm not one of these people that shies away. If someone spots me, then I'm really grateful for the spot, and always happily chat to anybody. Although my wife will tell you that I have had faux pas in the past. Would you like to hear that story?
Yeah.
So my wife apparently was a mad Famous Five fan, and she's admitted to me later she was secretly in love with Julian when she was, I don't know, 12, 13, something
Yeah.
like that. And I did an event, a disco. I used to run discos, the Mad
Yeah.
Hatters Disco. And at the end of that, the kids that wanted autographs would all line up, and I'd sit there and I'd sign autographs. And my
Yeah.
brother, Aaron, was our bouncer and my roadie. And basically, when he got fed up, he'd call time. So I'm busy signing, and he decides that we've got to pack up and go home because he's bored now. So he goes to the queue and he says, "I'm really sorry, you lot." He's finishing now, and he stopped the line just in front of my wife now,
Wow.
Lucy, and her
Oh,
best friend. And they were like, "But we've queued for 45 minutes to get an autograph." He said, "No, sorry, all done. I didn't know this."
wow.
Until I met her some, I don't know, 30 years later, and she reminded me of the fact that she was cut from that. She went home, she ripped all my posters off her wall, and she went in a different phase. But fortunately, she forgave me and married me, and we've been happily married for a
Oh,
number of years now. So it all worked out well in the end.
yeah.
Sorry,
And
Tom, you didn't ask that question,
no,
did you?
no, that's fine. That's a really nice story. And one of the things you've done that I don't think many people can say oh, some people might have done it for other things, but no one can ever say they've ever done this. But what was it like? And it's really fascinating to me. What was it like appearing in in the famous five German films?
It was absolutely magical. They were so lovely. The part I had in the German film was a really, really small cameo
Yeah,
type role, and they just wanted one of the original Famous Five
yeah,
be in the film so they could call it. But I arrived. I had to learn all my lines in German. Die
yeah,
Feuerwehr ist schon unterweg, which means the fire engine is soon underway. I don't speak any German, but I spent all that time
yeah,
learning my lines and got picked up in a flash limo, brought down to set, got applauded onto the set, and then was introduced to the brand new cast of the Freund Frenda,
yeah,
and absolutely lovely kids. But because they hadn't been shown yet, they weren't famous. But I was to them someone they'd studied,
yeah,
looked at, watched all the videos, and they were like, "Wow!" So I was, well, humble me. Um, and that was great. So we filmed it, and off I went home. And then my wife, my agent, and I flew out for the premiere
yeah,
in Munich. And Lucy, my wife, didn't expect anything. She'd known me for years, and we don't go to these sort of things, but got dropped off at the limo, and they were asked to go one way.
yeah.
The door was opened, and I walked up a red carpet, and there were hundreds of people asking for autographs,
Wow.
shouting, and Lucy and Catherine, my agent, just stood and looked, and it was like, wow, those people want his autograph, and
Yeah.
and so it was absolutely amazing experience. A lovely, lovely crew. fantastic cast members and a really great adaptation.
Yeah.
Although they did manage to get away with making up new stories that we were never allowed to do during
Yeah.
our series.
Yeah. And do you think that that sort of shows how influential th this was as an adaptation? Because even in Germany, they wanted to make sure that the characters were as faithful as you were in the original. Do you think that that sort of showcases that when an adaptation is done right, it'll be used every time they want to adapt those stories?
Yeah, I think we did very well with our adaptation, staying very close to the book. We only butchered one because Five on Treasure Island, the Children's Film Foundation owned the rights to that one. So we adapted two different stories,
Mm.
Five, Runaway to Kirin Island and Treasure Island, into one story. And we made that our flagship introductory one. And that was the only one where we differed. And having read all the books, I knew that we were sticking very closely to
Yeah,
the storylines and all of the characters and everything. So no, we kept close to it, and it was a shame after the 2 years that we couldn't go on to do
yeah,
more. But at that time, the foundation that owned it, the family, wouldn't allow us to write any more episodes, any more sort
yeah,
of our own invention.
yeah. And since the recent version of the BBC One, whoever commissioned it version, have you seen the most recent the recent versions that have come out this in the last? I think it must have been the last 2 years or so.
Yes, yes, yeah. No, I do tend to watch most of the famous five things,
Yeah,
whichever age group they're aimed at. And it's a good retelling of the story, and the actors are very good, and it's all very quite exciting. It's different
yeah,
to our famous five. I I um I went to the rights holders at the same time as
yeah,
those people approached them because I had a concept and have a concept. I've
yeah.
got a first script draft of imagining us, the famous five
Yeah.
from the 70s, grown up now to
Wow.
age 60,
Yeah,
and as families do, or in this case, in this family, Dick and George had had a big bust up and fallen out.
yeah,
Jennifer had gone off to marry a stockbroker and start a riding stables in Hampshire, and Julian was a very pompous barrister
yeah,
working in the city of London, divorced from his wife, ostracized from his kids. So that's the setup. And then when Anne's daughter is kidnapped
mm,
by Mr. Rowlands and his gang, who from one of the episodes we put in prison, because I
yeah,
worked on the basis that there was like tw at least 26 villains we put behind bars,
yeah,
and they probably have a grudge. And so this one came out, tracked down Anne's daughter, kidnapped her, and then held her for ransom. And that forced the four adults and one new dog
yeah.
back together to
Wow.
try and resolve the kidnapping of Anne's daughter. And at the end of that, there's a sort of a rapprochement
Mm.
between Dick and George, and the four. And Julian realizes there's more to life than being a big sort of boring barrister. And Anne is all excited about life and you know, the famous five activities. And so it was all set to become a sort of Howard's Way meets
Yeah,
Midsummer Murders with added nostalgia of the famous five. And it still sat there as a first script
yeah,
draft, but until I get the permission from the rights holders, I can't approach anybody to try and turn it into reality. But Gary and Jennifer were both happy to reprise their roles in it as well, so they could have had the original cast at it. There we
yeah,
go. If you know anybody, Tom, let them know.
yeah. And I think that that sounds incredible because when you think of like reunion episodes and reunion shows, I think that sort of works better than if you think of like when everyone heard about the Friends reunion, they thought, oh, it's going to be amazing, but then it wasn't. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It just wasn't an episode of Friends. It was a talk show. Same with the Raymond one. That's also a talk show. But the point is that reunion episodes are sort of like hit and miss, if that's the modern
Mm,
words.
mm.
But I think that that would really work really well because it's a continuation, and that could spawn off into a series of its own because I think that people
Yeah.
will want that. If you look at 9 out of 10 TV shows on right now are reimaginings or reboots of old shows, so I think that we're in that age. Do you think that that's why it felt like the right time for you to write that? Because you felt that not only did you want to do that for yourself, but you thought that the TV landscape would want that as well.
I think the TV landscape wants cozy crime.
Yeah.
They want gentle crime, and the Famous Five was always gentle crime. I
Mm.
only ever saw one gun when we were filming the
Yeah.
Famous Five, one replica gun,
Yeah.
and that was on a flashback for a body of a dead World War II soldier. So we had no real violence, and the idea of Famous Five Reunited, as I've codenamed it, was combine the excitement of Midsummer
Yeah.
Murders, where there's a murder a week, with all of the glamour and the boats and the cars and the seaside of Howard's Way, which is probably not a series you know, Tom, because it's probably before your time. But some of your viewers might know it. Pull all that together and create great stories. So you've got this really cozy crime, nostalgia-filled
Yeah.
crime fighters that are out there trying to solve particular things with a whole bunch of people that don't like them. So you
Yeah.
can chuck other Mr. sort of well Ronald Fraser's character in and they can come. So that was always the thinking of it, and I'm still very much sat on it as a
Yeah.
project, and I'm waiting until till the rights holders say yes, go on, you can have a go at getting this funded and getting it out there. So it's sat there waiting. One
Yeah.
day you'll see it on telly, Tom, and you'll know, hey, we heard it here first on the
Yeah.
Tom Mason interview.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that happens, and because I think that because of I think, and I don't know this as a fact, but I think the Famous Five that aired the recent special a few weeks ago is in deemed as popular. So I do think that the Famous Five is as popular as it ever has been because I think
Yeah.
because what's really it's like that with there's Doctor Who and James Bond and all these others. A lot of generations, not every, but a good few generations have their version of Famous Five and have their version of Doctor Who and have their James Bond, and I think that that's what makes those things last for longer because you can go, oh, that's my era, I remember that, and it makes people want to watch these things. So you only watch the reboot of All Creatures Great and Small because you want to see if it's any good as the original, and you find out the original's better, but you want to see how they've done it again, and I think that that's what makes these things interesting. Do you think that that's why they love redoing the franchise? They love like reimagining it each time because they want to see how they can use newer technology to make the story like even more advanced than it was previously.
I think I think sadly it's a little bit more basic than that. That I think um, repeats are fantastic
Yeah,
and repeats show around the world. And the Famous Five has been on various channels here over at different times on some of the nostalgia channels. And you're right, the quality of filmmaking, film stock, and all that back in the day, back in the 70s, is nowhere near as advanced as it is now with AI and things. But I think that every generation, you said it, we get new Doctor Who's, get new James Bonds. Things change, audiences move on,
yeah,
and yeah, I think that you create a new product for a new audience, and that works for them, and you're creating good watchable television with classic storylines. The new Famous Five again have gone off in their own direction
mm,
in terms of creating their own storylines. They're
yeah,
not traditional stories. But, the one thing that I was amazed by, and Tom, I know you know this,
yeah,
so shameful plug, but that's my new book called Running Away by
yeah,
Marcus Harris. And I had a fantastic publicity agent who got me some
yeah,
fabulous interviews and different things. And he got me an article, an interview with the Daily Express, and I thought, oh well, I'll get a little tiny column in the Daily Express because it's ex-child star writes first blockbuster book, he
yeah,
hopes. And I thought nothing more of it.
Yeah.
Then when I bought the paper, it was a whole double page
Wow.
spread. I mean, literally
Yeah.
2 pages, all about me, about my book, and all about the Famous Five and how relevant the Famous Five is now and
Yeah.
whether it needs to be updated or whatever. And I know I'm not kidding myself that I've written this absolutely amazing first
Yeah.
time book that warrants 2 whole pages. It's there because of my history as Julian in the
Yeah.
Famous Five. But to be given 2 whole pages of a of one of our best, biggest newspapers in this country was because of the Famous Five. And
Yeah.
that just gives you some idea of the strength of the brand, the strength of the product, and it's the enduring affection that people have for it.
Yeah. And moving on to the book, what one of the things that I love about when you have books out in general, doesn't matter what genre the book is. I love the how the audiobook sort of enhances it with like different sound effects and different noises and other bits and bobs. But what was your process when it came to do recording the audiobook?
Being very, very excited because I've always wanted to record audiobooks. I've
Yeah.
always seen that as a good thing to do.
Mm,
Um, And then when my agent said we're going to need an audiobook
mm,
and it wasn't included in the package with the first publishers,
yeah.
they don't make audiobooks. So I went off to a studio in Oxford who do all sorts of books for all sorts of people.
Mm.
And I had 2 fantastic days sat in their studio just reading my book and loved it. Absolutely loved it. I ran out of voice a little bit towards the end, but I did
Yeah.
absolutely love it. Yeah.
And I think that what makes an audiobook special is that when you're reading the book, you can sort of imagine how the characters sound and how you think that it should be read because it's all in your head. But when you listen to an audiobook, you get a new experience. You get this sort of, you feel like you're there with the author. You feel like it's just you and the author, or you, the author, and in the car you're in. So, do you think that that's why audiobooks are so popular and loved because they feel a closer connection to the author?
It's a really interesting question, Tom. It's not one that I'd considered before. My wife is a prolific audiobook listener,
Mm,
and I try to be a book reader,
yeah.
but there isn't time.
Mm,
So when I'm sat down, I've got a million other things to be
mm,
doing rather than pick up a book. And so the only time I can get to listen is when I'm traveling.
yeah.
And as I'm usually the one behind the driving wheel or the motorbike handlebars, um, it's not a good idea to try and read a paperback whilst you're on a motorbike. So yeah, having the audiobook then is a really convenient way.
Yeah.
What was really funny, Lucy, my wife, said was we listened to the audiobook in the car going down to a friend's birthday in Devon.
Yeah.
And it was me talking to her through the speakers and then me chiming in and correcting me or making a comment about me. And she
Yeah.
said it was so weird getting me in one ear and getting me coming from the
Yeah.
speakers as well. And it was really quite unnerving. So at one point she banned me from listening and she went off to listen to it quietly on
Yeah.
her own rather than
Yeah.
have me chiming in and making comments.
Yeah, and that makes it perfect because you're in this car, and for me, because my mother has this sat nav, and you can record your own voice on it. So I decided to record each interaction,
Brilliant.
and so whilst we're driving, I might be saying something that I think is fascinating, but then every so often I interrupt myself because I'm the sat nav as well. And so that she
Yeah.
can't concentrate what's going on because she's trying to listen to this conversation that she's half interested in because she can hardly hear what I'm saying whilst the sat nav, which is also me pulling different voices, is trying to say you need to turn that way now, and you
That's
can just
brilliant, Tom.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it enhances your sat nav experience. But audiobooks, I think that you enhance. So if you read an autobiography, which I do quite a lot, you sort of get to know the author more because you might have known the person beforehand. So it's like I don't know, Peter Kay, for example, but then he might add different elements to it that you wouldn't have got
Yeah.
otherwise. Do you think that that's what makes audiobooks charming? Because, like, you can have like a book that might be a musical book, and it might be a special book where you scan it and listen to music, but then if you listen to the audiobook, it might all be included. Do you think that that helps to not just makes it a person reading, but also enhances that it's more than just the voice?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Although when you read a book, you are adding the noises in your head. I
Yeah,
think most people add the noises in their head. They, it's a little bit like reading a great book and then watching a television adaptation.
yeah,
The characters are never quite how you imagined them.
mm,
The dialogue isn't quite how you thought things should be said.
yeah,
And so I think if you add too many sound effects in,
yeah,
you're doing the reader, the listener's work because you're saying you don't have to imagine
yeah,
that cow mooing. We'll just put the cow moo in now.
yeah,
So I know certainly when I narrated my book, we didn't put any sound effects in. We just, I just read it as if I was sat there by the fire reading a story to you.
yeah,
So, yeah, no, I don't know. I think I'd be a little bit cautious about
yeah,
all the sound effects. And I know some of them do, and I know some of them have multiple voices and they have conversations. And I had a, I'm going off at a tangent here, Tom. Is that all right?
yeah. That's right.
Um, I live in a little Oxfordshire village, and Lucy and I went up to London and we watched A Christmas Carol performed by one man. So he played
Yeah,
Scrooge, he was
wow.
Dickens, he was everything, and he was brilliant. They all
Yeah,
are brilliant when they do it. And Lucy said to me, "You could do that. You could do that as a reading down the local pub."
yeah,
So I asked the landlady and I said, "Can I come along and just read some Christmas Carol to whoever wants to listen, the kids and whatever?" And then my dad said, "Oh, I could read the part of Scrooge." And then a friend of mine said, "Oh, I could be Cratchit." And before you knew it, we'd cast the whole thing for a dramatized reading. So we ran it. And of course, as you'd imagine, everything went wrong. People forgot their lines. Bob Cratchit came on with Tiny Tim on his shoulder after Tiny Tim had died. And I had to say to him, "Bob, Tiny Tim's dead." And he saw his face go, he said, "You could have broken it to me more gently." And he threw the puppet that was Tiny Tim into the wings and carried on. And it was that sort of chaos. And that's evolved over time into what we call the pub pantomime,
yeah,
which is was referenced recently by Alex from Strictly Come Dancing because
yeah,
she's in our pub panto as well, and
yeah,
various other people. I don't know really why I went off down this tangent, but I guess I'm telling you about telling you about the dramatized reading
yeah,
that became a sort of a production
yeah.
that then has spawned out into the sort of dramatized reading of a pantomime. We did Snow White this year,
Wow, yeah,
which was really good.
yeah, yeah. And what I think that works really well for audiobooks is a sense of and it's a thought that occurred to me like 4 seconds ago was and it's a really fascinating thought was the fact that if you ask a certain generation and to an extent still, you sort of get the feeling that when they were younger, they might have watched Jack and Ori or any of those type of shows, and you have someone reading you this story that you might recognize, and it's a famous story, or it might be a story you've never heard of,
Yeah.
and it's ex-famous for Trent Reach, and you sort of get the feeling that they're reading it to you, and I think that that's another thing that I think works really well for an audiobook is because you can feel without seeing them directly staring at you with their creepy eyes, you can sort of feel that they're reading it to you. And do you think that
Yeah.
that's another aspect of saying, well, we know that you love reading, but we want to read it to you like your parents used to. We want you to go to sleep with our voice. Do you think that makes it more charming?
I think you're right. Yes. And I know that Lucy uses an audiobook to
Yeah,
go to sleep and she
yeah,
will just have it playing under her pillow. She'll be listening to it until she falls asleep and then the timer turns it off. And
yeah,
so, yes, there is a lot to be said for the bedtime story. My youngest child is now 22 and my eldest is
yeah,
36 or yeah. 36,
Yeah.
37 next year. So it's a long time ago that I actually read any books to children, to any of
Mm.
my own children. But I think there is that comfort, there is that thing about someone reading to you.
Yeah.
And if audiobooks give you a little bit of that feeling that someone's there
Yeah.
just reading away,
Yeah.
um, with a good voice, because Lucy, I know, turns off a number of audiobooks
Yeah.
because there's a jarring voice on there that she doesn't like.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. I think that is the closest thing to being read to that a lot of people get these days. I hope kids are still being read to by their
Yeah.
parents. I'm sure they are, but when you grow up, no one reads you a story that much, do they?
Yeah. And I do think some adults still watch CBeebies bedtime stories for the particular people that are on it. So I do know that there's some adults out there that are being read to by some famous person that they might fancy. Um, that was a joke there that didn't go anywhere. And so
Oh, I
well,
thought it was good, Tom. It's
yeah.
okay. It's just between you and me anyway. That's fine.
Now one of the things you've worked on that I know for a fact, due to the fact that they've made it very clear that there's a certain someone, not naming any names, in America that's quite obsessed with this variant, I'm going to call it, in the world of audio drama. What was it like appearing, particularly in series 5 of the Gallifrey audio series?
Do you know what? I spent 2 whole years being in the Famous Five, loved it. Um, the most exciting and my biggest claim to fame,
Yeah,
and the thing that I still get tapped on the shoulder for at various
yeah,
conventions is the fact that I was the very first Time Lord to get killed by a Dalek
yeah,
in one of the fantastic audio books out
yeah,
there. So
yeah.
yeah, I was the first Time Lord, and the Dalek came through the portal, and I saw it, and I basically said, "What are you doing? If you go, you dreadful Dalek!" And it said, "Exterminate," and I was like, so yes, big claim to fame that.
Yeah, yeah, and what I really like about Doctor Who, other than the TV show, the audios, and the books and magazines, all the others, etc., is the fact that you can appear in it as either a cameo or you're in it not for long, and you can still have this incredible career of you could go to every convention possible, and there'll be thousands of adoring people. And I think some people, and I don't know if this is true, but some people retire on the fact that they only need to do conventions because they've appeared in a Doctor Who or
Yeah.
whatever else that's in the same vein. Do you think that that helps to enhance your experience being in the world of Doctor Who because you can rock up to a convention and have 20 to 20,000 people queuing up to get an autograph or a photo?
Um, Possibly. We get a few people still queuing for Famous Five and coming to see it, nowhere near
Yeah,
as much. And what was really funny is that Gary did a very small part in a James Bond movie,
yeah,
and we went together to this convention earlier on this year,
mm,
and we were at our table, and there
yeah,
were all our books and Famous Five stuff and photographs to sign. And Gary was getting twice as many people knocking because, of course, Gary is Doctor Who through
yeah,
and through. Famous Five. He had Phoenix in the carpet, a few people, but he was getting these huge amounts of people coming with these really ornate posters,
yeah.
and I noticed they were James Bond posters, and I said, Gary, why are you signing all these James Bond posters? And he said, you see that car there? You see those three kids in the back of the car? And you see that one turn round? He said, that's me. I was like, yes, isn't it? And that was it. The James Bond followers were fanatical coming up to get,
Yeah,
they had to get every single autograph of everybody in that
yeah,
particular film. And some of these things were just beautiful, great big mosaics of autographs from every single person that played any part or any role in that James Bond movie. So I was quite jealous. I thought I'll have to get a big part in a James Bond movie to be part of that world, I think.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if any of the producers are listening, give me a shout. I'm
yeah.
there for James Bond.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting about fans in this. I think it must be a similar circle because I know that Blake Seven gets shoved into that circle where if you're a fan of Doctor Who, you're bound to love Blake Seven and da because they're all in this similar vein and some cross paths of people working on it and whatnot. Do you think that that's what makes this whole experience worthwhile because you know that there's a large selection of people that just adore everything in that room. Do you think that helps? It helps to expand your experience in this industry.
Um, yeah, I've not had that as much because whilst we've got some amazing people who are lifelong fans of the Famous Five,
Yeah,
I don't think they're in their legions like they are for Doctor Who. And because I'm such a small part in the Whoniverse, I don't get people arriving on my doorstep looking for autographs that regularly. Um, so yeah, I think I mean I have a friend who was a stormtrooper
yeah,
in one of those Star Wars spin-offs.
yeah.
And he does earn a good supplementary income going around these fairs. Just as one faceless stormtrooper, he sits there and he signs autographs. And I'm thinking, perhaps I went down the wrong route there. Perhaps I needed to be in Star Wars.
Yeah. And what are the other things you've worked on that is deemed in any actor's playbook as you need to do X, Y, and Z? Obviously, doctors that used to be in that list is no longer available to that list, which is a crying shame, and we mourn it every day. But one of the things you've worked on that I can never understand why there's so many people still live in that county. But what was it like appearing in an episode of the very famous Midsummer Murders?
Well, I've appeared in more than one of the Midsummer Murders. I've sort of been in two or three, never with a main role, but always with a sort of a supporting artiste type role. And it helps the fact that I live in the middle of Midsummer or
Yeah,
the mythical Midsummer, and my the town of which I was mayor for a couple of
yeah,
years and I'm still a councillor was Causton for a while, and Causton Nick was in Wallingford, and the theatre they used to go to was my local theatre, Corn Exchange Theatre in Wallingford. So it was very much Midsummer Murders centric, and so yeah, so I was in a few things. And again, lovely. I know Neil a little bit, who's the current incumbent of that role,
yeah,
and they're a good crew. They're a good crew. They make some good stories, and I've been very pleased with the things that I've done.
yeah,
Yes, again, if the producers are listening, still available for a central baddie role. I
yeah.
think I play a good baddie. But yeah, I've enjoyed the things I've done in it.
Yeah, and I do think that Midsummer is one of those places where you think, oh, it's a really nice program, but you do wonder because it's a county. You know, there's a lot of people live in counties, but you do wonder why anyone wants to live in that county if there's countless of them. It's like Shetland. Shetland's a small place, and you're wondering how many people actually are left in Shetland that hasn't been killed. Do you think that that's why people keep watching it because they want to find out who's left in these places?
I must admit, it does seem like a very scary place to live with
Yeah.
the body count. But I've been in small towns that have had murders and unexplained deaths and things going on. Nowhere quite as prolific as that. But again, Midsummer's a county. There's all sorts of other towns within Midsummer. So, perhaps these things are about right. I mean, poor old John Nettles and co and whatever. They were really earning their money because every single week they've got some really death-defying thing to do. But again, talk about fans. We were we were having a meal in our local hotel restaurant the other day, and there were a bunch of people coming, and they were talking about Midsummer Murders,
Yeah.
and we chatted to them and explained because Lucy's also been in Midsummer Murders. In fact, she was John Nettles's first WPC, and she was in quite a few episodes with him, making him
Yeah.
tea and having a few lines and a few different bits and pieces. So they were really, really impressed. But they come to our town to do a circuit to just have a look at all the midsummer sites and see what's going on and things like that. So no, it's a series that's done well for our community, and I've enjoyed my little bits and pieces on it as well.
Yeah. And I think that that's what works really well with these shows, where they give small villages and small places you wouldn't normally see on the map. So without giving away my location, so I'll say critically, there was a quite popular program that showcased. There's a few programs that have done it, but this particular one showcased my local area off quite well, and I think that you get I don't go out much, so I don't really know, but you get more people coming to these places, and it helps with the economy. And where you might have these places might have buildings shutting down left, right, and centre, but with these programs, then it helps promote the area. Do you think that that helps when it comes to keeping the atmosphere of the place alive? Because there's tourists that might have seen this show from around the world coming to see the filming locations.
Definitely, yes. I mean, Wallingford is the most beautiful market town anyway, regularly features up there in the top five, top 10 towns in the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
We've got some beautiful architecture. We've got huge amounts of history. We did have a castle that was bigger than Windsor Castle till Oliver Cromwell knocked it down, an act of vandalism. Um, so I think we get a lot of people coming to the town anyway to see that. Agatha Christie, of course, lived in Wallingford, and we have a statue of her to hand. So we get a lot of Agatha Christie fans, get a lot of Midsummer Murder fans, get a lot of history buffs who just like to come along and see the history. And then we're also very good at events, live events, music festivals, and things like that. Sorry, I've got into a bit of an advert for my town here, which I have told everybody where
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But did that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, it did. And earlier you mentioned about being the mayor, and because you're involved in, I'm going to say the arts, because I'm assuming that's the correct term. Sky Arts assumes that's the correct term. Do you think that being in the arts and knowing the landscape of where the arts industry is, do you think being the mayor sort of helped you sort of knew how to help to keep your local art scene going?
Um, Yeah, I don't know that we have a huge amount of problem where I am with arts. We've got
Yeah.
a very vibrant art community. We have an award-winning church choir. We have the most fabulous theatre that I was there in the 1970s, helping to take out rubble and bricks as we started to build it, and it now seats 140 something people, puts on cinema shows, pantomimes, plays, West End productions beamed in. So I think from an art point of view, we're pretty good in Wallingford. Um, so I don't have huge complaints, but I think that's because we're quite an artistic community down here. There will be other places that it will be challenged and it will be difficult, and you do have to keep it alive because it is such an important part of life. Sure, we've all got to go out and make a living. We've got to do our 9 to 5. We've got to, do our shopping and all the boring, mundane things that sort of get you through to a weekend. But art transcends that. And yes, art in whatever form, whether you want to jump on a stage and perform Hamlet, or if you want to get up there and sing an aria, or get up there and play the spoons. In fact, do you remember Britain's Got Talent? Do you remember the bell ringers?
Yeah.
Gay and I forgot the chap's name. It's terrible. They live in Wallingford, and I've because I'm also a live events MC, so I also host a few of the events in Wallingford, and I put them on stage to do that production, and they had a huge crowd. They had a massive following from Britain's Got Talent. So yeah, it's a good town full of very interesting people.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I love about, like, when you watch before I started watching Sky Arts, I knew a bit about the art, but I wouldn't have assumed the word arts was anything else but painting,
Mm.
because every other medium has other words, so I didn't think the word art would come under it. But then watching like Portrait Artist of the Year and then getting into Sky Arts and learning about it, I think it shows how fascinating that the arts isn't just considered to be painting it, dancing it, singing opera out of key, and it's doing whatever you wish to do. And do you think that having a channel like Sky Arts on TV, do you think that helps to show the world, like, well, the people that get access to Sky, do you think it showcases that the arts is more important now than it's ever been in its history.
Yeah, I don't watch Sky Arts particularly, but I'm aware of it. So I think art is a very different thing for different people,
Yeah.
and making sure that we have access to the art of our choice.
Mm.
And you could arguably say that like some amazing footballers are artists, the way
Yeah.
they can move their body, the way they can move the ball, gymnasts and horse riders and all of these things. Sometimes it's like watching poetry in motion with some of these things. So I think art can be found everywhere, and it's up to you to look for it. And if you look for it, you can see it, which I
Yeah.
think Banksy proves quite regularly when he as he has just done, put a new picture up in London.
Wow. And so, as we come towards the end of this lovely, glorious, and artistic interview, um, this is your opportunity to showcase what you're up to. But with NDAs are rife and things are always under lock and key. But from what you are allowed to publicly say, what projects have you got upcoming that you're excited for the wider public to see, hear, listen, watch, or do all the other meaning that they do with things?
Well, thank you, Tom. That's very kind of you to give me the opportunity. Well, the first thing I guess is that I've been approached by somebody who works with the BBC about creating a three-part drama out of the Running Away book,
Yeah,
which is absolutely fantastic. Um, these things, there's a lot of conversations at a lot of time, and they don't necessarily come to
yeah,
anything, but I'm very excited if that happens. Sadly, I didn't write a part in there that really suits me, so I would have to just sit from the sidelines and watch
yeah,
it going on. My second book is now in edit,
yeah,
and that seems to be getting a bit of interest. Second book goes in a different direction. This is a straight, it's a chase.
yeah,
It's a detective thriller chase.
yeah,
The new book goes a little bit weirder.
yeah,
It explores basically a bunch of kids die in a car, have a car accident and kill some people
yeah,
back in the 90s. In the 2025s, they're being hunted effectively by a poltergeist, but the poltergeist is being controlled by somebody else
yeah,
that's actually seeking vengeance. And then the police, the good old Thames Valley police, have got to find a way of trying to stop people dying,
yeah,
even if they can't arrest a ghost. So they've got to suspend their disbelief to
yeah,
try and investigate and stop the deaths from happening whilst not being able to say, we know it's a poltergeist that's doing this. So that's the new book,
yeah.
and that is hopefully coming out in the early middle part of next year. And then the third book idea has now popped into my head, so I know what the next book's going to be about as well. But also, sort of tucked away is a fantastic Christmas film script. I say fantastic. My wife thinks it is. Other people think it is, um, which is called A Very Cheesy Christmas. But Christmas scripts are not, there's not many buyers for Christmas scripts, and there's an awful lot of writers. But Lucy and I just love watching Christmas movies at this time of year. So we'll sit in front of them every night.
Yeah,
And they always have a formula. You know exactly what the
yeah,
formula is. You start with an aerial view of a wintry New York or wintry city or a wintry scene, and then you zoom in and all the various things happen along the way. So we've written this thing called A Very Cheesy Christmas that just exploits the
yeah,
cheesy element of a great Christmas film. So again, if any of your listeners fancy coming in and greenlighting something like that, then
yeah,
I'm your man.
yeah,
Other than that, I carry on being a counsellor for Wallingford. I carry on doing my live stage emceeing and various events, and I carry on running my business and surviving. So that's me, Tom, in a nutshell.
yeah. And you mentioned there about adapting your book for TV. Now, I don't. There's a few. I think there must be more than these examples, but in Heartstopper and I think Aventador, but I could be wrong on that one. That you have the author, right? Even they want to be in it, but they might not want to. They might not have a part for them. They just sit in the corner like they're in a shot, I think you could do that where you could. So Alice Ottoman, who wrote Heartstopper, she's drawing on a train next to where the action's happening right next to her. So you could
Yeah.
do something like that. You could be in a coffee shop. You could be in the background somewhere whilst the main action's occurring, so you can appear in it.
I think there is one part in Running Away that I could play.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is one, or maybe I could be second policeman who finds him in his doorway without giving away the plots. Um, so there are a couple of smaller cameo type roles and one moderately sized one, but certainly I didn't write it with me in mind to be the sort of the star of the show. But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. If they're going to make a TV series of it, I want to be there.
Yeah. And so, on that note, we shall leave it there. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for letting
Tom.
me interview you. And thank you guys for watching my interviews in 2025. Yes, we've had some ups, we've had some downs, we've had a new YouTube channel created, and we are still going through the classic interviews and re-editing them to make them up to the standard that I deem I'm in at the moment, as in right this second, not the previous second, this second. And that's a very good joke there for people that are paying attention to how many seconds I was talking for. And so, there we have it. Thank you guys for watching. And remember, no, I've forgotten.